wanna stay right here. Oh, I'm not here, say, I'm not here for this. Oh no, yeah. Jesus, you don't. You gave it all already. Woo. More than anything that you tonight. I'm sorry when I've gone right. I'm sorry when I sing another song. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry when I've come with my take me back, open just one more time, and I just want.
Good evening, everybody. This is Pastor Marcus with the Life Church, and we are having an extended week of homies, lovers, and friends. This particular live today is very important because we're going to talk about relationships, but we're talking about relationships between the civilian and the police officer. That's the relationship we're talking about today. We're going to have some real conversation today. Just a few things before we get started. I asked that, we do have HPD police officers on today. This is not a platform for bashing or anything like that, but this is a platform for real conversation. So if you're open, we're opening the comments for questions. But if those questions are vulgar or offensive, then we will not have those questions out. We want to have a healthy conversation today. And so I brought some of people that I trust, some people that I love. I brought even new people that I've just met, and I'm going to give them their opportunities to introduce themselves. And we'll start with Sergeant Bruce Audley. If you would, sir, please introduce yourself to our audience today.
Good evening, everyone. As he said before, I'm Sergeant Bruce Audley. I work for Houston Police Department, supervisor currently now at the Southeast Patrol Station off of McCowa Road. And of course, this weekend I'll be moving over to the downtown station. But I want to let you all know that I'm a member of our Afro-American Police Officers League, board member, Sergeant at Arms. And so we speak on behalf of the community in that regard as law enforcement. Also, we have a nonprofit called Black Law Enforcement Association. And we'll talk more about that later. And basically with that, one of our missions and goals we have is to enforce, or not enforce, but to facilitate the Senate Bill 30. And Senate Bill 30, if you don't know, you can look it up. It's a Texas Senate bill and legislation, which is a program that requires high school students to take a course on what to do when approached or stopped by the police. And so we're out trying to go through the community, through churches, through schools, and try to implement this program to help people stay alive and also be able to understand what to do and not to do, of course, when you encounter police. And so, so that's pretty much, my history. I'm a native Houstonian, so I've lived in almost every urban neighborhood in Houston, from the Fifth Ward to the South Park to the Acres Home, the Studewood area to Fifth Ward to Missouri City. So I pretty much have an array and understanding, and I understand our people's plight. I've been part of that myself.
Okay, awesome. Moving on to the next, we have my mentor, my friend, my brother, Pastor Purvis Hall. I would ask that you would please introduce yourself, sir.
How y'all doing? Something just happened. My screen flickered. My name's Purvis Hall, church planter in the city of Houston now. Way Fellowship Church, formerly the Fellowship Church at Freedmanstown, where we did a lot of work there. Community kind of grassroots activism kind of work to save the brick streets there in Freedmanstown, and we're still there in a more distant kind of way because we're now worshiping outside of Freedmanstown. Well, I guess everybody worshiping outside of their local place of worship right now because of this COVID-19. But we actually have moved our actual physical location to worship near the Missouri City Pearland area, but we still have great love for Freedmanstown and the historical context that brings to the richness of Houston. So that's myself. Thank y'all so much for having me.
Okay. Also we have Officer Eric Carr. Sir, if you would just introduce yourself to our audience today and let everybody know who you are.
Hi, my name is Eric Carr. Can you hear me pretty good?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm the co-founder of the Black Law Enforcement Association with my partner, Sergeant Owley. I've been working for the Houston Police Department for almost 18 years. I've recently became the African American Police Community Liaison for the entire Houston Police Department. My background, I've been working in community service for decades. My educational background, I got a bachelor's degree from the University of Houston downtown and my master's in counseling from Prairie View A&M. So, about solutions, real about solutions. I want to also just formally say hello to all of the guests that's on the panel, and I'm looking forward for us having a good discussion.
And last but not least, Bishop Sterling Davis, if you would please introduce yourself, sir.
Sure. Bishop C. Sterling Davis II, senior pastor of the Renaissance Church here in Houston. Though I'm not a native Houstonian, I am from the East Coast. So I've been here my family and I have been here for approximately 12 years. So it's going to be a great discussion. Looking forward to having this dialogue with you all.
Okay. And so we're going to go ahead and jump into this discussion. But for those who are on now, I ask that you will please share this video that people can get this information and we can actually have a good dialogue tonight. The reason why I'm doing this, and I want to let everyone know this. I believe in protesting. I do. But my concern is that the protesting comes and goes like fads. One moment, we have this situation. Then there's an uprising, but then as time goes, that uprising passes. My goal is to start a consistent conversation that will invoke change. That's my goal. That's my goal. I sat back for a while quietly because I didn't want to just say anything or just put out my opinion, but I really want to have some way of invoking change. And I believe that tonight we can put it on the minds of people on change and understanding, because the Bible does tell us in all our gaining that we must gain understanding. And I believe if we gain some type of understanding that we can make some progress in this area. And so tonight, that's where we're going. Once again, it's just an organic conversation. We want to go in, but I do want to start off with a question. This is a question that I've asked myself, and I've already asked Sergeant Owley about this before we started. I'm going to ask this question to either you or Officer Carr. As far as the detainment of civilians or a possible offender, as far as the detainment of them, are there rules against the force that's used? I mean, I understand sometimes that there has to be force used, but is there rules? Are there procedures? How does all of this work? Because truth be told, I don't even understand. I don't even know how that works. I just know that if I get out of line, then y'all have to do what you all have to do. But is there a procedure? Are there steps to this?
Yes, they have a use of force ladder. And basically, when the use of force, you come to a scene, you assess the threat at that particular time. Of course, your initial deal is to use verbal commands. Try to deal with a situation. You don't come in, out the car and you go straight into doing it. You use verbal commands. You tell someone, hey, put the gun down, or stand down. You use verbal commands. If they don't listen to verbal commands, and then you may have to go into the next phase. Next phase may be, depends on the situation. If there's no weapons involved, the next phase would be to go to and possibly maneuver the person and say, hey, look, I need you to come from over here. You stop fighting, and they can take the person. Then from that point, if you have to restrain them, handcuffs. Then from there, you place them in the vehicle. And so, like I said, but it always begins, remember, it begins with verbal commands. And of course, and it's one thing we want to teach people, when you hear those commands, that's not a time to start an argument or debate. You hear the commands, they follow the commands, because it's not a court and jury out there on the street. And officers are trained to deal with the situation. If they're called to a location or called to a disturbance, their job is to quell the disturbance. That's first and foremost, and ensure the safety of all the people and the parties that are there at their location.
Okay. So with that, and I understand that the policies and everything. How is it? How do we know, or how is it in the department? Because and this is just my opinion, and this is how I feel. A lot of the things that has happened in the past, the things that are going on, and this is just my opinion. I feel that the guys that get out of line, the guys that go too far, I feel that's a case of where they're not really in fear of losing their job. And so they cross the line, they go too far. Is there policies against, I mean, these may be obvious questions, but is there policies against going across the line? Like how does that work? Is there policing amongst the police? Like how does all of that go on?
Okay. Like I was explaining to you before, there is certain levels that if you go beyond, of course, it can be assessed. One of the great things that we're glad that they've implemented, we have body cameras now.
Yes.
The story is told on the body camera, and we assess it. As supervisors, we observe body cameras on every scene if there's an issue. So we look at the body camera and we think the force that was used was necessary to deal with that situation, then it's justified. But if it's the force, like you use more force that's necessary to ensure the safety or ensure that the scene is dealt with, then there are repercussions. Of course, what we call internal affairs. You can drop a internal affairs complaint. If you don't have to really go that far initially, you can do what we call a SI. You can do a supervisory intervention where you speak or talk to the officer and let them know, say, look, the actions that you had, you may have kind of a little bit overzealous on this. Let's try to do something differently next time. This is a learning, especially for the younger officers. The older officers kind of know because they've been doing it for a while. But, when you're learning this job, sometimes you get excited, the adrenaline's going, you're doing a high speed pursuit. And then at the end of the pursuit, you've been chasing someone 10 minutes in a vehicle, then you get out, of course, your adrenaline is going. And we teach them to kind of, be calm, approach the situation or approach safely. So yeah, if they go overboard, we do have measures where we have internal affairs, but we start with a supervisory intervention. If it goes beyond that, we feel as though it goes beyond that. And basically when we say goes beyond that, did you violate somebody's civil rights? Did you do a criminal act in what you're doing? And we kind of take it from there.
Okay. So with that, there's policies, procedures that you all have. This is something that I've noticed. I watch videos on Facebook and all of that. And sometimes I notice that once a person is pulled over, and once a person is pulled over, they automatically go into defense mode. And growing up as a young guy, I can say that I was guilty of that at times. That because I did not have a good perspective of police when I was younger, and when I would get pulled over, I would automatically get upset. I would automatically have attitude. I would get defensive. Are there gestures that we make. And I'm not in no way I'm being funny. But besides being black, and that's where we are right now. But besides that, are there gestures that we make, or is there things that we should do in that moment that would make us less susceptible to being caught up in these situations?
Go ahead, Carr, and you can address that. Can you hear it? We can't hear you. See, if your sound is out, I'll address it. Yeah, go ahead. Now we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I muted so you couldn't hear all the background noise. But nevertheless, good question. So yes, when you get pulled over by the police, this goes back to Senate Bill 30. Senate Bill 30 is a bill that requires all high school graduates to know their rights dealing with traffic stops, civilian training, police training, and also when you get your driver's license. So when you get pulled over by a law enforcement officer, the first thing you want to do, especially if it's at night, turn on your interior lights. Okay? If you got tint, pull your windows down, turn your radio down. When the officer approaches your car, there's a 7-step process, if we're talking about a traffic stop, that officer is supposed to do. He's supposed to identify himself. I'm Officer Carr, the agency he is with. I'm with the Houston Police Department, the Constable Office, the Sheriff's Department, and what have you. The purpose for the stop, and asking you for the necessary information, your driver's license, proof of insurance, and what have you. Now, once he gets your information, he has a couple options. After he runs your information, he can give you a citation for the traffic stop. He can give you a warning for the traffic stop. But what I want our people to understand is you also have the power to de-escalate a situation if you're dealing with an officer, because we understand we have some bad apples out here. So let's not be naive. So if the officer approaches the vehicle and he's not doing the 7-step process, then you need to identify this officer as someone who is not very professional. And it would be in your best interest if you want to. Do you want to be right, or do you want to win? If you want to be right, go ahead and argue with the officer. Why are you pulling me over? You're pulling me over because I'm black or whatever. And that's just going to escalate this officer to go to another level, especially if this officer may be undiagnosed with PTSD. So you're going to argue with someone at 2 o'clock in the morning, in the middle of the night, who has a gun that could be having a mental illness as well. What we want to encourage everyone to do, if you're dealing with an officer you feel is unprofessional, de-escalate the situation. You have that same power to de-escalate. Obviously, the officer should be professional in de-escalating, but we don't want to put that in his hands. So I tell my family and friends, when the window's down, you hand that officer your information. Officer, I hope you guys are safe out here. I have family and friends in law enforcement. I hope you guys are being safe. You got your interior lights on, your windows down. That's called a courtesy. You're giving that officer a courtesy. And I'm not saying that's going to get you out of a ticket, but I'm saying that's going to put you in a better position of dealing with that officer and that situation escalating. And after you get released, if you want to curse that officer out all you want, do it all you want. But that officer is driving away and you're safe. And you're going home to your family safe. So please, like my partner was saying, don't try to fight your case in the middle of the street with some officer. Especially if you're dealing with an irrational, unprofessional, possible PTSD officer. That could be a possible bad apple. Don't argue and fight and protest your case right there. Get the officer's name. You don't have to ask the officer his name. Officer, what's your name? If you can see his name tag and read it, just record it mentally.
I just lost
because you asking for the officer name and badge number, that could escalate the situation even more. So just mentally record the information. And then we have to do a better job of filing complaints. file a complaint. There's several different ways. If you're not comfortable going to the station, you can file a complaint through the NAACP, through LULAC. You can go to the headquarters and file a complaint. We need to file a complaint, just like if his officer is doing something positive and he's Yeah, I was getting a call that was coming in. Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
It's okay.
Okay. You can also file a commendation if you feel like the officer is doing something positive. So you have the power to file a complaint. You have the power to file a commendation. But we got to start using this, brothers and sisters, instead of trying to use this, because that's not going to help the situation in the middle of the night on side of the road. I yield my time back to the host.
Okay. So you say that there's a bill that we should have known in high school. Is this what this?
Well, Senate Bill 30 is recent, within the last 3 to 4 years, and we've been behind trying to help push it and get it. One of the problems has been the difficulty of, I guess, facilitating it, because we have over 1,800 school districts in the state of Texas alone. And so where the bill reads is that every high school student prior to getting a diploma should take a course. And you can put it in your school any type of way you can. You can put it in a health class or history, civics, whatever you have, but you need to have a certain curriculum that tells students you go over what to do when stopped by the police. And we, in the process, actually creating a curriculum, and we're going to have 3 different modalities of implementing. We can actually come out to your actual school or church or institution, driving school, and to actually teach it, because we're TCO licensed instructors, and also we do adjunct professor work. I didn't really mention earlier about my education, but I'm currently in dissertation for my PhD, and have master, of course, 2 masters and a bachelor. So both of us do adjunct work on the college level also, and we teach at the police academy. So we have just to let you know, we have a background in teaching, and so we create a curriculum to go to schools and actually physically teach. We're going to do video. If you can't have us come there, you can get the video and probably show your students our presentation. And 3, we're going to do an online course, kind of like any type of online course, where a student can go online, take the courses, answer the questions, look at little videos, and then get a certificate when they finish and complete the curriculum, which will qualify. And that's what we're working with some of the state senators, things that, I don't know if you heard of Jarvis Johnson, he's out of the 4-4. And so Jarvis is working with, he's one of my fraternity brothers, so he's working with us on trying to do that. Royce West is one of the authors of the original Senate Bill 30. He's out of Dallas, and so he's behind it. And a few other senators. What's the other senator? Called one out of Houston, the one that we went to his office, the white fellow. But the other, anyway, we have several. John Whitmire. So all these people are behind that, and of course, we have some people with the Department of Education, State Department of Education, is helping us do this. But we're just trying to get some funding, obviously, and facilitate getting to the schools, private schools, charter schools, and public schools to get this done. And of course, you have few of us trying to do this. Be honest with you, like that's why we say it's a part of our ministry, because you don't have many police officers who are trying to do this. We're kind of trying to do it on our own, but that's why we need money. Some officers that do it say, hey, we have a stipend for you to go out to these schools, and then we can get that implemented. But those are the things that's important, because we want to start on the youth level before they even start driving, and teach them and give them some tools to put in their toolbox. So when they do start driving at 16, 17, 18 years old, going in the last years of high school, going to college, they'll be able to protect themselves. And many of these incidents that you notice are either high school or early college age students. Maybe most of them are from 18 to 25. You see majority of the incidents with the testosterone levels high. They got this, entitlement type of issues, and they got a lot of machismo, a lot of, they ready to fight and buck many times. You don't see too many 60-year-old black men arguing with the police and getting in trouble, as you notice. But our young men, we got to let them know, you want to be a warrior, this not the place to be a warrior. Be a warrior in other aspects, but not on dealing with traffic stops.
So I have a question for you guys from the audience. Is there a way to donate to this cause, like funding as far as anything like that?
Yes, we have a website, Black Law Enforcement Association, BLEA.org, and we have on our page, we have donations. We need as many donations. Like I said, we're just starting out, and we get donations that's going to help us move forward. That will help us progress what we're trying to implement. Yes, we are. And if they want to talk to us offline, we can talk to any organization, individuals who want to donate. We're willing to work with everybody in the community, any church, anyone. And like I said, we're looking for help from anyone and anywhere, because this is very important to us.
Okay, so we talked about those things. We talked about those things, but let's talk about the climate of what's going on today. Okay. We have this situation with George Floyd. My personal thoughts of it, it was unnecessary for one. I just feel as though it was unnecessary, and we've had so many people die. And then when you find out why they died, it becomes frustrating. So now we do have the rioting, we do have the marches, we do have all of this that's going on. The reason, and like I said, the reason why I'm doing this is because I really want to show people that there are good cops, but it's hard to believe that because of what we're shown. And I would love for either Purvis or Bishop Sturgeon to help me with this one, talking about the climate or the thought of the people and the frustration of the people. What is it that we can say to the people to get them to understand, hey, that this is not cops across the board. This is an incident that has happened, but we can't retaliate against all cops. We still need our law enforcement. How do we work this out? What do we say? How do we get to the people?
I mean, it's really, I don't want to use the term, I don't want to be denigrating and say it's common sense, but just like anything else, you can go to many places. It's like, is everyone in the hood and Acres Home, are they bad people? You see what I'm saying? Any urban area, because you got some people think, are you from a black neighborhood, or you from the ghetto, you automatically a thug, or that you something wrong with you. But we know that's not true. We know there's many people who have loving families, love their children, loving fathers that come from urban neighborhoods. So everyone in the urban neighborhood is not bad, but there's a few people. You got a couple of cats that want to sell drugs, a couple of people do a few robberies, and they're the ones who do majority of the crimes, but they don't make the whole neighborhood, everyone neighborhood bad. So I'll tell you the same thing on the flip side with police. There's a few bad apples that come through, but they make the whole lot look bad, because you just say that's a police officer. He's sworn an oath with the badge, and he's sworn an oath to the state, and he basically has a fiduciary obligation to the citizens. And when he breaks that oath, that's a serious deal. Just like when someone breaks their oath to their wife, it's a serious deal. And so it's hard for people to kind of forgive that and look at that, because they can want to say, we want to hold you above the average person, because the commitment that you should have as a police officer, you're given a lot of power. I'm not gonna lie, as a police officer, we have ability to change someone's life in an instance. And we don't take that responsibility lightly, because I can go right now, get in a squad car, go pull over somebody and find something or do something. I just randomly pick someone, they have drugs in their car, but they was about to go to college and try to become an engineer, and I can change their whole life in a matter of 5 minutes and give them a felony. And so we don't take that lightly. But you have some people, like I said, they go into this business, and I can't answer, because different people come from different backgrounds, all right? They come from different types of cultures. And you understand what I'm saying? Some people, believe it or not, I worked at the Sheriff's Department before I came to HPD, so I have a little background in different agencies. I worked at TDC, Sheriff's Department, and of course, now I'm at HPD, been there for years. When I was at the Sheriff's Department, there was a guy told me, this was back in the early 90s. He said the first time he ever seen a black person in person was when he came to Houston, Texas. And he's from East Texas, out there by Jasper area, if you understand what I'm saying. And he came to Houston. He said when he joined the Army, he had to come to Houston to get on the Greyhound bus to go to MEPS to go to the Army. He said, the first time he seen it, now check this out. He told me, the first black person I seen, he was laying on the ground asleep by the bus station. I had to step over him to go walk down to San Jacinto to the MEPS. So now his first person, black people seen in person, happened to be a homeless person because he got off at the bus. So now you can kind of internalize what his mind is and what he thinks. You see what I'm saying? And so he never had any positive. So when he became a police officer, he never had no personal interaction. So his environment and his biases of where he came from determined how he act with people, which was, negative. And he said when he met me, because I have some level of education and I have a certain demeanor, he told me, he said, man, by working with you, you're different. I said, no. I said, a lot of people like me, you just have to get to know them and not judge a book by its cover, but open up and read it. So that's the thing. Go ahead.
So saying that, real question, why does it seem, this is just, speaking in general, why does it seem that it seems to be those cops that are placed in the urban areas or in the areas where, when they see us, they are instantly threatened by our skin color? And like I said, we're not saying that all cops are bad, but this is what's happening, that you have cops and they say that they're threatened, and you see on the film, you see on tape that there was no threatening gestures, it was not a threatening situation, but yet and still they still come across as afraid. Why is it that it seems as though those cops are placed in the areas, in the black areas of town?
Can we do something real quick? Yes. And I want to kind of go back to that last question, the issue of climate. So let me lend this on a larger scale for me, and I think that we can have this conversation. Our current climate right now, as volatile as it may be, we didn't just arrive here at George Floyd. We didn't just arrive here with it. And whether we're talking about, and we can talk through systemic racism, we can talk through profiling, which is a part of systemic racism. We can talk through a litany of things. But because we're talking about police officers, right now the climate is that we cannot trust one person in blue, whether they are black, whether they are white, or whether they are Latino. And here's the reason why. Because the dynamic is, I think, and this is again to make sure that we have an honest conversation.
Right.
While we are saying that there are some bad cops, there are some good cops, and that becomes the narrative. The narrative is that we're not all bad. Well, there's a philosopher by the name of Edmund Burke who says these words, and I quote. Edmund says, the only way for evil to triumph is that it is necessary that good men do nothing. One more time. He says the only way for evil to triumph is necessary for good men to do nothing. So that means to me, you cannot tell me that there are good cops that are silent on the behalf of those individuals that they're called to protect and serve. Ergo, whether they are black, whether they are white, whether they are Latino. And I say that not just as a black man, but I say that as a pastor, I say that as a father, I say that as one who vehemently will say to anybody, I don't trust cops as far as I can spit. And not because I'm this individual who got it all together, but the climate is really about that. And again, I don't know how long let me make sure I get it right. The Senate Bill 30 was out. I don't know how old that bill is. But if you look at it, the question becomes, on a larger context, why is there a need for a bill to teach us how to respond to those who are in professions? Why do we need to be taught what to say to somebody when they are the professionals? I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen, but I'm saying I think that bill is in place because at some particular point, there is no accountability for individuals in blue. While we will talk about, and I wrote it down, you said Sergeant, I'll make sure I get it right, Aweli, right?
Audley.
Audley. I can't read the notes. I'm sorry. Audley. Sergeant Audley, you said the first thing that they have to do is assess the threat. Well, here's the first question. This is why we talk about climate. If all Black men are deemed as threats, then what's the real assessment? Then I heard that we do have cops that are out here, police officers, let me use the correct term. We do have police officers out here who have PTSD. Then why the ham and cheese are they actually out? Why have they been diagnosed but still put out here, right? That was brought up. Then we have the issue of no weapons. So even if I put my hands on the steering wheel, turn on the light, and there are times where police officers, and I've had this happen to me, so let me be very clear. I've done that, turned on the light, put my hand, and the minute they saw me try to turn on the light, he drew his weapon. And I'm like, are you serious? I'm turning on the light to do the courtesy, but because you assess the threat and you think that I'm the threat automatically, then that becomes an issue. So so the climate for us is that yes, there are good cops, but to me, I will go back and I will hang my hat on what Edmund Burke says. I cannot call you good that in the face of evil you say nothing. How can that happen? You talked about internal affairs, you talked about complaints, but the issue is I'm not saying that any of you should do it, but here's my thought, is that let's use this current issue, these 4 police officers. The question for me is, and we all can say this, is that we know even in social justice that there are some blacks, some of our Black leaderships that are not there for the right reason. They're walking headshots. They're waiting for their turn for the photo op. We know that. But we also have to admit that there are some cops that will march because it's a photo op, because it's good publicity, it's good marketing, it's a good way to squelch something. But isn't there a way that if this is a true dynamic that we can talk about, can cops press for the prosecution of other cops based on what you said when you talked about the 7-step process? When you look and you see the 7-step process wasn't done and it ends in a fatality, why aren't other cops stepping up and saying what they did was wrong and let me literally press for prosecution for those cops? Is it so I'm weighing those questions because those are the reasons why the climate is where it is, because it will always come back to the dynamic. All cops ain't bad. Again, the only way for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.
Okay, brother, you made some good points. Hold on, Bruce. Hold on. Let me address this, because you say it a lot, but they don't want to hear that. This is what they want to hear. So let me make something clear.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just being real. I'm a realist.
I like that.
So about the PTSD, I said for undiagnosed. We got a lot of undiagnosed people out here, including law enforcement, that has PTSD. As far as the Senate Bill 30, that's an educational training tool that we could put in our toolbox. But let me make this clear.
Can I ask you a quick question? How long has Senate Bill 30 been out? I don't know how long. 2017. Okay.
2017. 2017. So let me just be clear, brother. I'm a member of an organization called APOL, the African American Police Officers League. I was the president, and now I'm the executive board member. We just had a press conference last Tuesday calling all officers, Black, white, Hispanic, tiny, or gigantic. If you don't speak up and speak out against injustice, you're a bad cop. You're a bad cop. Let me make this clear. I've marched in the protests with the protesters, in and out of uniform, along with this chief. My life was in danger because people want vengeance. They want blood for blood. And if you put on this uniform, they don't care if you black, white, or whatever. You represent the blue. So when we march downtown and we pass those tall buildings and those garages, just like what happened in Dallas, we were vulnerable. But let me make this clear. That brother was murdered in the street. And people who see this on video over and over and over may be undiagnosed with PTSD themselves. Because if a dog was in the street and we did that to a dog, we have everybody in uproar.
Right.
So me as an individual, and I could name a list of individuals, that was injustice. And if you was there as an officer and you did not do anything, you are just as wrong. And I'm speaking to any officers out there. Let me make it clear. If you're on the scene and you see anyone who has been handled with gross negligence, or there being unnecessary forces being used, and you don't do anything, you are a bad apple. No such thing. If you see something and you don't speak up and speak out about this injustice, you too are a bad apple. Let's make that clear. So I want to make this perfectly clear. We have several officers who speak up and speak out all the time, but we don't get any coverage. But now it's the time. A queen saw some unnecessary force being used.
Mm-hmm.
As an officer, she stepped in and checked the other officer.
Right.
That's going
right.
viral right now. She wasn't a captain or a sergeant. So that's something good that may be coming out of this. That more people are being more motivated to step up and step out and say something. So I'm asking everybody to do something. And for that officer asked me whose side I was on, because I was working with a protester and encouraged them to exercise their right to peacefully protest. I'm on the side of righteousness.
Yes.
And whoever on that side, that's whose side I'm on, regardless. So if you're on the side of righteousness, I'm with you. If you're not, I'm not with you. So let's get the rhetoric straight. I feel you, brother. I feel you. I'm with you. But we need the good apples. We need your support. But you know why? Because we have to deal with the retaliation in the system that we became part of to try to help change. And we have to deal with the retaliation in the streets that see us as one of the enemies. So we get it on both sides, brother. We get it on
now,
both sides.
To your point, and I appreciate everything that you said, because again, that's not heard. To your point, because you said there's no press about that, right? So, and I get that. The issue for me, and I think that you'll agree when I bring this to light, the only way to stop any level of racism is that racism ends with white people. It doesn't end with us, because we don't have the power nor the cachet, because we did not start it. It's not our paradigm to change. It's our paradigm to fight. But it takes, to your point, it doesn't take two black officers on here. It takes having a white officer to be in this conversation, to say, okay, now we've levied because we know how the two of you feel, because as blue as you are, you black like us. Got it. But the question becomes, how do we do this? Or how do we have this conversation and bring white officers in? Now, hear me when I say this. This is a question that I have. To bring white officers in that are not part of the marketing campaign for officer friendly. That's what they used when I was a kid, right? That they are not the officer friendly public relations dude. This is the guy who literally says, you know what? Yeah, there are some issues that we got, and I'm willing to say that yeah, we do have racism within the forces, and there needs to be some different policy. There needs to be some different procedure. There needs to be another level of accountability. Let me tell you what I mean, Officer Ali. Now, maybe you can help me. I'm a former Marine, 5 years in the Marine Corps, and And I was trained as a sniper. That was one of the things that I was trained in to this day. Okay. In that training, when you become a civilian, what they tell you is that you cannot go to a regular gun store, and you can't go to Walmart and just grab you a gun. You can't go to to wherever, right, and just go get one. The paperwork I have to fill out if I want to have a firearm is this thick. And they tell you within those confines, because you are as trained as you are, if you shoot to kill, it's already murder one because of your level of training. There's no way in the world you should be able to shoot anybody and kill them and say, oops, I made a mistake, because you are a trained sniper. You can pick off something from a few hundred yards away with the scope, a few yards away, a few tens of yards away without a scope. So whatever you hit intentionally, right? Based on training. So if I hit somebody's, center mass in the chest, that's not a, oops, I did it again. That's a, you're trained, you knew better, and here are the consequences right off the bat. It's murder one for you. And that's what it should be. Why isn't there that level of process or that level of legislation for trained officers who have been trained in the 7-step process, who've been trained to assess threats, all of that? But when somebody ends up murdered, we see white cops walking back to their house, or we have to fight for, in this particular case, to have one individual who goes from murder 3 to murder 2, but you're trained in these 7 steps and also to assess a threat, is that you kept your foot on the neck of a man for 8 minutes while 2 other officers held you down. So I'm asking, is there a possibility, or is that something that can be discussed? Another level of process for those that are professional when it comes down to the lives of individuals.
Brother, what you're saying is something that we just recently learned that needs to be taken up in legislation.
Okay.
Because many of the things that we just learned, the last 2 legislations, we went to Austin. And like I said, with our friends and people that we started meeting, we realized to have a change, it has to be enacted in a law. Because what police go by was written and codified as laws. Code of Criminal Procedure, CCP, Penal Code, Traffic Code. And they give us so when we stop someone or when we engage with someone, we're doing it based upon the laws of the land. And then when we want to get charges, we have to contact the district attorney's office based upon the law of the land. They open up the book and we say, they ask you, what do you have? And you explain to them, they'll say, we'll accept charges. So once we went to Austin, we realized that people were talking about different laws and changing laws. We're like, wow, this is where it needs to happen. And so we presented some things, and like, so for instance, we went to one of the hearings. They were talking about, I don't know if you're familiar with this situation where they call it, for lack of a better term, they call it the little girl who sells lemonade on the sidewalk, right? It was
I know what you're talking about.
I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was a case of a black girl was selling like lemonade and in the neighborhood, and the people got mad and said, oh, she can't be selling lemonade. And so a scenario came up, and we know as we're, moving up on the higher echelon, the ladder of employment, we're moving into different neighborhoods. We're moving next to the oppressors now, right? We going to Cinco Ranch and Friendswood and Woodlands and all this kind of stuff. We moving in gated communities now, right? But we still got our barbecue pit dragging behind our pickups, and we're still barbecuing and bringing folks from the Fofo and Studewood and Fifth Ward on the weekends or for Thanksgiving to eat, right? So we still there doing our thing. And so the people in the neighborhood are looking like, why they at the park in Woodlands or why they at the park at Clear Lake barbecuing? They don't belong here, and they'll call the police. But really, they live there. They may have a $500,000 house there. You don't know what they do. They may be 2 medical doctors, husband and wife. They happen to move there, right? And so, but they see people, they don't think they belong. So we were trying to get something, say, hey, you shouldn't call the police frivolously because you see someone at a park. You don't think they belong there. Of course, you think if someone's committing a crime, that's more of a sin. You see someone vandalizing or damaging property, yeah, you call the police. But if they're barbecuing in a park with their family, that's not justified of calling the police. You know what I'm saying? Even though you said they only live there, they're not vandalizing anything. But so we heard that, and we kind of present, we kind of be a witness on something like that, and we realized the opposition on certain things because the way it was presented, some white people was offended, saying you're trying to call us racist. We want to protect our area and our neighborhood because they know who lives in their community, so they feel as though someone who's not from their community, and I'm gonna be honest, we are a victim of our own, I don't want to say our own lifestyle, but you've seen the movie Colors, South Central, Boys in the Hood, and it's all TV. We know in real life, we all don't live that way. But when people see these movies, you know what they think? They think we live that way for real. Everybody's not a blood in a Crip. Everybody's not a dope dealer. Everybody's not Monster Cody, or everybody's not Debo. But when they see these shows and when they go in the neighborhood and work, they say, I remember seeing Men's Society, old dog gonna come out in a minute and he gonna shoot somebody in the convenience store and drop his 40 ounce, and go in and take the videotape and watch it as a comedy. You know what I'm saying? But that's what they know because media has an imprint on their mind. So we are victims of that. So, with that being said, but legislation is the way. We had our main union, the HPOU, which is, the union for everyone, which ran pretty much by the Caucasians. They had the new Black Panther Party was coming, and they said, "Hey, can y'all come over? Your branch or your union come over and speak to them." And one of the things that my partner had said, "Hey, have y'all, y'all talking about these issues about the police? Have y'all went to legislation and talked about that because they had something down there in Austin about they looked and said, no, we know about no bill for that." We're like, well, that's part of your problem. You want to come out here and march and make high heels and the flip-flops, but you need to go down in Austin when they wanted people to speak on this, and nobody from here was speaking on this. And so it died right there because no one know nothing about it. But brothers and sisters, you need to educate yourselves to understand what change occurs. Yeah, you need to do some things in the street, but laws are what, and so when those laws are made, law enforcement are forced by their oath to follow the law and only enforce the law of the land. So that's what we need to do, brothers.
I hear you. What you're saying is we have to force the law of the land. But let's go to this situation that even sparked this conversation. By law of the land, he should be charged worse than what he's charged. He was murdered 3. It took us tearing up cities and looting and doing all of this to get it moved to murder 2. And not only that, but the officers that stood around and watched for them to even be considered wrong. So how is that not a law of the land that this man blatantly murdered this man? You could see it in the video.
Right.
And he's not charged with murder 1. Okay.
Now, not making no excuses, but based on conversation I heard from a district attorney speaking, and I know this from being in law enforcement, for 2 decades. When you try to file a charge on a person, you want to get a charge that that's going to stick. Say, for instance, they go for capital punishment, murder, and capital punishment means that it's death or life imprisonment or lethal injection or whatever they're going to do, right? But if you go to trial and you cannot prove the culpability, you cannot prove to that level of murder 1 or capital punishment, if you lose that case, guess what happens to that suspect? They are released. Now, do you want to take the chance of trying something that's you already saying, okay, it's something that's kind of taboo, but also we got to have other evidence involved. We know we have 3rd degree. Let's get what we know we can get, manslaughter. We know we can get that. We have the elements there. But we go any higher and we have any chance of losing, then it gets thrown out of court, and they have a rule called double jeopardy. Okay, you can't bring it back to court again on the same thing.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And they know if he gets off, guess what's going to happen to the country then? You think they riding now? They're going to say he got off the murder. So they're trying to present a case they know they can prosecute and basically get an indictment. That's pretty much that.
I agree with that. And I think the other part is, I think most of us, I think you brought up a great point when you talked about the issue of educating ourselves in process. That includes what murder 1 is, what murder 2 is, what is manslaughter, right? And again, going back to issue, it's not about anything other than what you can prove. And because murder won, and I say this because I was the person who was like, murder won, electric chair, get burned, get him, fry him like Popeye's chicken. I mean, that was me. But I also understood that part of murder one speaks to the issue of intent. In other words, they planned to do it. Like he woke up that morning and he said, you know, right, I'm gonna look for George Floyd or any other black man, and this is what I'm going to do. Now, unless there is, and this is not a defense, I think that this is an educational piece to Officer Audley's point. I think that there are some things we have to educate ourselves on. But I also think, and I'll go back to what I said before, and I think you answered that really well, Officer Audley, and I appreciate that because it helps me. It gives me some other understanding, another concept, and also another vantage point. But I also think that there is some parts of that, and I think it was spoken to earlier with Officer Carr, that there are people that I guess this is my question. Are there people within the force, to Pastor Whitaker's point, that because you are sworn to uphold it, when there is a violation of it, what's the police officers or what are the officers' obligation to really push for either prosecution beyond reformation, beyond reforming, but for prosecution? So is there something within all police forces across the country that can say, hey, they were dead wrong. They need to be prosecuted. Is that a thing? Can that be done? Has that ever been done?
Okay, I think I see where the missing link is in this process. The police department itself, within itself, does not obviously can file charges without permission of the district attorney's office. Now, what we have, we have what we call internal affairs. When a violation of anything, so first let me tell you, we look at policies, you know, people who break policies. We have what we call general orders and policies and procedures. When an officer violates a general order, a policy procedure, we have different punishment like days off, suspension, you know, or things of that nature, or we take away their rights to work, you know, extra employment, you know, different things of that nature. But most of it comes in the form of days off, which affects their money, of course, because while they're off, they don't get paid. And of course, it affects their ability to promote or their ability to transfer into another division that they desire to be into. So that's part of that. Now, if the police department, during the part of the internal affairs investigation, identify something that potentially can be criminal in nature, they're obligated to go and contact the district attorney's office as they would with any other incident. The only difference is in the police department, we have a process because we have a thing they call civil service. And you may want to kind of look that up. Civil service, it protects the police officers and their rights. So you have to understand, we have unions in police department. And I think that's what people are overlooking. Every police agency, major agency, has a union. And this, like, I don't care if it's the Teamsters, I don't care if it's the car manufacturer. When you have a union, you know there's some menagerie of red tape and there's some bureaucracy that's involved, right? So your union is going to represent you on any case, and they're going to put quagmire and they're going to do things, and that's what they're supposed to do. You pay union dues. So the union is there to protect their members. I mean, any union would do that. If you had a church union, I don't know if they really have one, but they did, they would protect, you know, whoever violated policies at the church, right? And so because of the policy and procedure, we have what we call a contract through the state. Believe it or not, it goes through Austin. The police department has a contract, which the union negotiates with the city of Houston, and it goes and is signed and is placed in Austin. See, a lot of people don't know this. We are actually working under a contract. Under the contract, there are certain stipulation, rules, and regulations about bringing allegations or charges up to an officer and give them what we call due process. Because, and to be honest with you, they don't want the implication of an officer every time something happens, oh, it's criminal. Because two things will happen. You'll have a disarray of officers. Oh man, every time I even, you know, try to police, I'm going to get fired or I'm going to go to jail. So guess what happens to police officers? Now, when somebody break in your house or put a gun in your head, they may come to your scene, but they're like, you know, man, I don't want to do too much because, you know, it may be interpreted some way and they're going to just terminate me or try to prosecute me. But so we have civil service, it gives you protections and rights based on our contract. So the process, you have up to 180 days to investigate an officer. So that's part of the due process. Y'all don't know that. They got 180 days to come to, which is basically 6 months, to come to conclusion. And they use those 180 days because they do a lot of interviewing, they do a lot of questioning, and you want them to have 180 days. Because if they have to make a decision, like in this George Floyd situation, in 24 hours, we got to make a decision. If they make the wrong decision, he's going to get off. Because you got your union attorneys and union people that are behind you. 180 days, they get an opportunity to thoroughly investigate every minutia of this case. Not saying he got off because he's not immediately terminated. Really, he's relieved of duty, but he's not on duty anymore. And they have to go through the due process. And in the course of this process, guess what happens many times? They may find 3 or 4 other allegations or other things they're going to put on it. So you want them to go through this process. So after the 180 days, before the 180, then they can go to the internal affairs will call the district attorney's office and say, look, we've done 130 days, whatever, 100 days and 90 days investigation. And y'all remember the Hagley Street deal with Evans, right? That's because they're finding additional things as they go. You see what I'm saying? And so the 180 days is necessary, to investigate any process. And so they'll present to the DA's office, and we have a public integrity department at the Harris County or any district attorney. I think I'm talking about Harris County because we're in Harris County. Harris County have a public integrity liaison that presents, the internal affairs will present this to the internal affairs, to the public integrity division of Harris County District Attorney's Office. And they will look at taking the charges, and they'll guide them, say, he may have committed murder 1, but look, let's go with murder 2, because I know without a doubt we can pin that on him. And that's where that process goes. That's why it goes, and a lot of people don't understand that. You have civil service, we have a contract, but there are different bureaucratic things that are involved that the average person don't know that's involved with employment as a police officer. If they don't have those things in place, many police officers probably would lose their jobs for just sneezing too hard or something. So they had to implement these things that help protect the officer as well as, the citizens.
Okay. So, gentlemen, we've hit our hour. This has really been very informative. I do have what I want to do is I want to close out with a closing statement from each of you. I haven't seen any questions or anything come up in the comment section. So I want to leave out with a closing statement from each. We're going to start with Sergeant Audley, and then we just go to Bishop Sterling Davis to Officer Carmen Purvis Hall. If y'all would please do that for me.
You just want to just conclude about what we're talking about tonight?
Just conclusion, any encouragement to the people, just something that can help us.
Yes, well, my encouraging words I want to give is that education, knowledge is power. So, we talk about the Senate Bill 30 and educating individuals, and I guess we didn't really go elaborately into it, but the Senate Bill 30 also is to educate police officers also. And believe it or not, last year, the Houston Police Department for a whole year taught the Senate Bill 30 portion to all of its officers. And now we're trying to teach the citizens, so both the officers and the citizens have the same information. They conduct their business dealing with the same information. You understand what I'm saying? So we're on the same playing field. It's like a football team. You call plays, everybody on the team, you can know the plays. So when an officer sees a person, when they pull them over and say, hey, this person must went to the class, so I know they're trying to be safe because they're following the procedures taught in the class. I, as a police officer, I know the procedures. I'm going to follow the procedures because I know this person identifies it and they're following procedures on their side. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we're going to meet each other in the middle. But if you ride up on someone, they look like they're high on drugs or they're intoxicated with alcohol, and then you see the aroma and smoke of marijuana coming out the window, and they're playing music and they're bobbing their head and they look like they're talking to themselves, then you may look at the situation totally different. So this person has not been educated possibly on the procedures, and I need to govern myself accordingly as I approach this situation. So that's the kind of things that, I want to leave with tonight, is that education and knowledge is power. We have these Senate Bill 30 courses, try to sign up and take it. Like I said, officers on the other side are taking classes also, believe it or not. It's being mandated. We're not just trying to dictate to the citizens, but the citizens are not getting the information out readily enough. We're trying to facilitate and get them educated on that. So if they have any questions or anything in the future, feel free to contact Black Law Enforcement Association, blea.org, and we'll be happy to address anything for you.
Okay. Officer Carr.
I don't know if he's still on. I think he got muted out. You might want to come back to him.
Yeah. Pastor P, you have anything you'd like to close out with?
Let me again, man. I've been silent. I was trying to hear all of the point of views and all the perspectives and all of the insights, and I appreciate all of it. It's been very educational for me. I still have tensions. I have tensions, and I have tensions because I've been a part of a lot of conversations about racial inequality, about coming together on different platforms. And so one incident, one forum I was a part of was with the Center for Racial Healing. And they put on a film on racial equality and how to overcome this hurdle in society. And so after this movie or this film, this documentary we watched, and there's people from all nationality groups, white predominantly in the room, and blacks and so many others in the room. And so after they watched the film, which is about white suppression on African Americans, they went around the room and asked, many of the white persons there began to apologize for their ancestry. And then they came around, they asked all of the persons that were in the position of the being oppressed, how do you feel? And many of the comments in the room, actually the majority of the room, began to say, I feel hopeful that we can move forward. And when they got to me, I felt like I do now. And I said, I don't feel hopeful. And the reason I didn't feel hopeful in that moment and in this moment is because we've always had safe spaces to have tough conversations. But my concern is, will we take what we said in the safe space in the public square? And C.S. Lewis talks about there's another law, and I know we've talked on this conversation on this call about many laws, but C.S. Lewis talks about another law, a moral law written on the hearts of men, and that law should guide our movements, no matter what the law of the land is. The moral law that God has given to the hearts of people should tell us and does tell us what's right and what's wrong. And when we see blatant injustice, as we did see with George Floyd, I'm looking for not commentary about what the district attorney is talking about, and I understand that's part of the process. What I'm saying, stand with me and say, that's wrong. That's wrong. And that's what I have not seen from my brothers in blue. I've seen it in pockets, and I've seen some of the videos, but on a large scale. You know, we talk about all of these organizations and groups that are doing the work, and I appreciate the work that they're doing. But I haven't heard or seen, and maybe y'all can enlighten me on another time, and I get my information. I love to continue the conversation. That what we've seen, the brothers in blue say that's in a large context. I've seen the silos. I appreciate you guys being here and being honest and open tonight. But that is what I'm thirsty for. That is where my heart hurts, because I'm seeing the pain of the people. I'm seeing the community show up and say, that's wrong. But I'm not seeing my same brothers in blue, because the truth be told, I know there are brothers in blue that have been affected personally by some injustice
based on police brutality. And so I'm saying whether there's an indirect connection or what, we've got to be able to say based on that moral law of the land that God has given us. Man, that's wrong. That's blatant wrong. And I know we got to go through the process. I know you got to do your 80 days, but look, man, that is wrong. And stand with me and stand with the folks and say, man, that's wrong. Don't show up for the photo op and disappear, but stand with me through the process and continue to say that's wrong. That's just what my attention is, man. I love y'all, man. I appreciate you law enforcement brothers that are on the front lines and in the grassroots doing the work that we don't even know about that you're doing. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. But be like Socrates say, be the gadfly in your community of blue to get the other brothers to do what you're doing in a much global scale and a much larger scale to say that's wrong. God bless y'all. Love y'all, man. Let's continue the conversation.
Officer Carr, would you like closing remarks?
Yes, Pastor Marcus, I want you to send out the press conference that went out worldwide. We did a press conference, and after that press conference, we have been literally doing media blasts from CNN, from ABC Morning Show, the Canadian show, and all over the world. Because we had a press conference with officers, several that spoke out against this. Please send this out to your listeners and send this out to the panel. Second of all, I don't really do all the complaining and arguing. We in the trenches. We doing the work. Everybody want to hear it. We doing it. And we've been doing it for a minute. Now, the solutions are laws, policy, recruiting. Have you been to jury duty? We need you to do jury duty. Have you completed the census yet? We need to be represented proportionally. Get involved in the system. Run for something. Have you ran for something? And if you don't want to run for something, team up with somebody that believes in your ideas and support them. Encourage, motivate, and inspire these youngsters to get involved in criminal justice reform. We have a recruiting process where we out recruiting young brothers and sisters to get into to be hired and give them a career. Do you know somebody? Send them to us so we could get them a job. Get them involved in the DA's office. Parole, probation. We have job placement set up. We have job training set up. You know someone? Have them call us. We got a mentoring program that could get them right in the police academy, the next academy coming up. Brother, reading about all the talking and complaining. Systematic racism is something that's been going on for 400 years. And it's going to continue to go on. But we could make a difference by just one at a time with the things that we could control. The principalities, we can't control that. But we can make a difference with one person at a time. If you buy real solutions, team up with BLEA. Send us people who's interested in the criminal justice system so we can help them get employment. Encourage people to complete the census so we can be proportionally represented. Encourage people to get involved with jury duty and stop avoiding jury duty. And yes, speak up and speak out. Everybody, speak up and speak out. Police, citizens, I don't care who you are. If it's wrong, it's wrong. That's all I have to say.
Okay, well, I appreciate each and every one. That Bishop Davis lost his connection, but I appreciate each and every one of you all for everything that you've given, for helping us with understanding, for expressing how you feel. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing. I wanted just to get I wanted this to be heard. For all of the links, I'm asking. I know you sent me the link for the press conference. I will post that. I also want all of the links for all the information that you were saying, the programs that they have. I'm willing to put that out. I'm willing to have these forums for the Senate Bill 30. I know it's for high school, but I believe adults need to know this too. I'm even willing to set
Now
up.
let me make it clear. It's not for high school. It's a 3-point basis.
Okay.
They put it in high schools because they want them to get the information before they graduate.
Okay.
They put it in the police academies, where police departments have to do more training on de-escalation and citizens encounter dealing with traffic stops.
Okay.
They put it in the driver's training school, so when you get your driver's license, there's more curriculum based around it. In addition to that, they want every citizen, every person to be educated on police encounters, dealing with traffic stops, and police encounter, know your rights. So it's a holistic approach. It started off with just high school and in the school, but the representative said everybody needs this information. So
Okay.
it's a holistic approach.
And I'm willing personally, I'm saying this, I'm willing to set up a facility where it can be taught. I have a sanctuary right here. They can come, once everything is open and flowing, and even I'm willing to have that. And so these are things that I'm willing to do to help change.
Well, let's do it.
I'm willing to do it. So, like I said, I have you all information. I want to thank you guys. I want to thank Pastor Pierre. I want to thank Bishop Sterling Davis for being on tonight. Let's not let this be the end of this conversation. And like I'm with Pastor Purvis when I say let's continue the conversation. This thing we have to come to a better way. And so that's all we have for tonight. I'm going to end this thing with prayer, and then we're going to go ahead and get off. Let's pray. Dear God, we come tonight thanking you for conversation, God, thanking you for those who have information, God. God, right now I ask that you be the pilot to this whole situation, God. We give this situation to you, God, because we know through all the procedures and policies, even through all the classes and the thoughts and the mindsets, God, that you are in control. And so now, God, we cast these things to you, God, that you may take control and change the things as you see fit. God, we love you, we honor you, and we ask that you will continue to cover and protect us and keep us. God, we thank you for all that you are and all that you've done. It is these and many other blessings in your darling son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you again, guys. I appreciate everything that was said and everything's been done. I'm going to end this broadcast like this. We set the standard everywhere we go. Good night.
Good job, guys.